Welcome back to Tim and Friends. Busiest couple of weeks of the year for GMs in the NHL. Maybe ever, which is why I appreciate the time of any managing generals that join us, including my next guest, Leafs GM, Kyle Dubas. Thanks for doing this, Kyle. Is that hype or is the sleep deprivation real right now? Is this the busiest time ever?
There has been a lot kind of crammed into the last few weeks, Tim, for sure, and it's been great. We've been able to get back together with our staff, which we haven't done for over a year now. So that's been great, and great to have everybody together and sort through all this together, from expansion to the draft tomorrow and Saturday, and then on to free agency next week. But certainly a busy time and a big opportunity and a big stretch for us with the Leafs.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how quickly this is all coming about, starting with the expansion draft last night, all the roster freezes, the opening free agency, the draft. I know you have an idea of what your fan base is thinking, and there has been this running it back with patience versus making significant changes debate going on within the fan base. And I was listening to your availability earlier today, and it sounds like you believe in this group and you believe in this core. Is that accurate?
Yes, I would say that's very accurate, and I also understand that with that, especially when the group has yet to reach its potential or have success in the playoffs at all, that there comes a certain desire for changes and a certain doubt that goes with it. But I do have that belief in this group that they will have that breakthrough and they will have success.
I hope we've talked enough for you to know that I try my best not to speak out of ignorance or be unfair.
Sure.
That I've studied teams and how to win for years in a bunch of different spots. I mean, I just watched Tampa, who people thought couldn't do it in the clutch, go back to back. We're watching the Bucks in basketball. They win in Giannis's 8th year, though they did make a pretty significant change to the core this year. In your opinion, with your team, how much of winning is a balance between responding to what you see in the results of playoffs and trusting in your process?
It's a great question. Certainly, I don't take it as an ignorant one or anything like that, Tim.
Appreciate it.
I think it's something that we think about at the end of every year when you go back and look at what happened both in the regular season and the playoffs. This year in the regular season, I thought it went fairly well. It would be tough to argue that. The thing I especially liked about our team was, unlike in previous years when we hit stretches or losing streaks of 3, 4, 5 games, we came out of those stretches better, and we didn't let indifferent or average play fester for a long time. So that was an encouraging sign for me in the regular season. But I think nobody wants to hear about the regular season at this point. They want to hear about playoffs and playoff success in North America. That's what the sports are all about, is having success at playoff time. So when it comes to the group and the process that we go through to build the team, I think we're always looking at ways to adjust, and we'll always look at anything that we feel can make us better and help us to accomplish what we want in the playoffs. And this offseason for us will be no different. If there are moves that come up that we feel, regardless of who it is on our team, can make us better, we will do that. The situation with the core is that I find it hard looking around to find a way in maneuvering around them that we could move any of them out and win a trade and improve our team that way. And so I think we have the major belief in them as people, and have major belief in them as players. And I think the lessons that we've learned throughout the last 5 years, and I know that and you've mentioned the fan base and media here, I know that that runs much longer, whether it's since 2004 in the playoff winner 1967, which I think we have to talk openly about. Those things are there, and our group doesn't bear the responsibilities of all of that. We do bear the responsibilities of the last 5 seasons and the fact that we haven't gotten it done. And you referenced a lot of teams that won in the playoffs but couldn't get to that final breakthrough point. Right. And some of them stayed the course with the core that they had almost exclusively. Others, like the Milwaukee Bucks, you referenced, they made a significant trade last year to alter it after a number of seasons. So I think there's a number of different ways to go about it. The flat cap in our sport impacts that, and also I think just the belief in the people that we have here, who they are as players, but also who they are as people is what leads me to patience and conviction in my belief in them.
It's funny because I heard someone say, well, what choice do they have but to run it back? They're in salary cap hell. And besides thinking, yeah, so is everybody else. In fact, the team that has the cup in their hands literally can't run it back because of how much the cap has changed things. In your mind, has the flat cap changed your flexibility and the leagues as a whole?
Well, I think it has impacted everybody's flexibility aside from, I guess Seattle, and a number of other teams that I would classify as in mostly in rebuilding situations where they have plenty of cap space that will kind of dry up here as they go through their own rebuilding process and then have to re-sign the players and the talent that they acquire while rebuilding through the draft or other means. So I think it impacts everybody, Tim, and I think it certainly, yes, I think it limits everyone's flexibility, but that's the same for everybody. All 32 teams now are faced with the $81.5 million salary cap, and we have to maneuver around it. So I think it falls on me and on our management team to adapt to that and adjust and to give our team the best chance that we have to have success within those within the fact that the salary cap isn't going anywhere. So. Right. And that's what we'll get after here in the next week or so.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about that in a flash. And Chris Johnson said something interesting on Twitter earlier today, and he said he thought that this media availability had a last dance or a last stand kind of vibe to it. Does it feel that way to you?
No, I don't know what exactly he was referencing.
Like your commitment to this core, your commitment to this group, that you were saying, like, listen, this is our team, this is what we're moving forward with. I think that's what he meant by it.
Sure. I didn't know what exactly he meant by the media availability being my last stand. Like it was going to be.
No. I just meant the statement that you made about your core. Sorry, I should have phrased that differently.
No, it's all good. I think with regard to the core, I think all of us look at it, and I don't think anybody feels that if we don't take tangible steps next season, that that will be the 6th year of that, and certainly the 4th year where this group has been in place. I'm speaking about the addition of John, and you're going to have more decisions next off season with key members of the group, their contracts coming up, and so. I think it is on this our group here, and that includes management, coaching staff, and players, to really be at our best this season. And I think the group will be this season. I fully believe that, and seeing a lot of things that nobody else sees, just the way that the group handled and reacted to the way the season ended, and their work ethic and commitment since then. So if that's the way that it came off, that's just because that's the way I feel, and I don't see there any reason to really dance around it. I know what comes with a position like this, and I embrace that challenge and know my responsibility to our organization and to the fans in Toronto.
Fair, and I respect it. I talked to Ron Francis yesterday in what could have been the most awkward interview of my career because he couldn't really comment on a bunch of things that we already knew because Twitter had kind of sorted through it all. But he said that the other GMs learned from the Vegas experience. Are you surprised about how little he was able to get in terms of prices to lay off players or select a preferred player?
I wasn't... I was just an assistant GM in 2017 and working with Lou, and we were in a much different spot back then. A lot of our players with the lease were exempt, so we weren't really at risk of losing, some of the players that other teams were at risk of losing. What I would say that really changed for them was that the flat cap and the effects of the pandemic on the business of the league, I think really, rather than teams wanting to protect their veteran guys that have meant a lot to them and to their organization and that contribute to them contending, they were exposed. And if you acquire players in that vein, moving them in some regards may not have been too easy if they didn't play well, or you just wanted to move them on for cap flexibility. And in the previous iteration of the expansion draft 2017, teams they went from making deals to protect those players to this year exposing them, and because of the flat cap, knowing that players that maybe perhaps are a bit older or have larger contracts as they're getting older are not as easy to move. And that's just my opinion of one of the things that may have made the expansion draft for Seattle different than Vegas. And I do think that Ron is correct that there were some lessons learned in that 2017 expansion draft that, combined with the flat cap and the way that the pandemic has affected the business of the game, contributed to it being a different experience for Seattle. But I still thought that they did a very good job, and they'll have a competitive team.
All right, I want to get through a couple of things here, and I know your time is limited. So I'll ask you a couple about your UFAs and how you're going to move forward here. But when you gave Zach Hyman permission to speak to other teams, did you hope that would result in a sign-in trade?
No, I think, Tim, our view of it was I had talked to Todd Reynolds leading into the end of that weekend, so last week. And, we were sort of, I would say, at a bit of an impasse. And, he had alluded to what other teams had been hinting that they would be willing to pay Zach. And I just thought, rather than us wait until July 28th and then find out what was reality and what was not, and us hold up the rest of our business knowing what we thought we could do with Zach, it probably would be the best move to give him permission to actually go out and find out whether what teams were saying was true and make them put their chips on the table. And then if one of those teams wanted to do the maximum term with Zach, then we could try to help facilitate that if we weren't in a position to do a similar deal of similar dollars. And so our hope was just to kind of gain clarity on the situation rather than force a sign and trade and just kind of ensure where the market was, so that we could plan if we weren't going to be in the ballpark to begin to check down and look elsewhere. And if it was so that things were kind of out of whack with our valuation, then maybe perhaps it would expedite a deal back here. So that was the intention in giving the permission.
Understood. I know there's some tough luck for Nick Foligno in Toronto, but if in fact Zach Hyman does move on, does that give you enough space to say keep Nick Foligno?
I think Nick would be in the mix with a host of other players. It would mostly rely on the style and where they would play in the lineup, and we'll go through that with Sheldon and our group here. But it was tough for Nick. I mean, and it's this sort of thing is the reason why in past seasons we've really avoided rentals. And philosophically, I don't love it because a player comes in, they have to, this year especially, they had to sit out for over a week, and it was 10 days all told in the end before he joined the team in Winnipeg, and I thought looked very good in the first set of games, and then just an innocent play stopping at the net in Montreal it creates a major issue just with the back, and so it was difficult to see. I think he tried to gut it out as best he possibly could, as we knew he would, but obviously wasn't the able to perform at the level I think that he expected of himself, and that's the way it goes when you do those types of things. And obviously, he was a wonderful person, and we knew that when we acquired him. But even in the brief time here, we saw everything that everyone had alluded to, and certainly through that first set of games in Winnipeg, and then coming back home and playing the way that he had played early on, certainly felt like that it was definitely the right move. And one innocent-looking play kind of derails it, but. We've got a lot of time for Nick and continue to have dialogue with them.
All right, last one, and I don't want to walk down the road of a terrible website from the early 2000s, but you can just say hot or not on this one. You gave Zach Hyman permission to speak to other teams, but you didn't to, say, a guy like Freddie Anderson. Does that suggest that you're trying to keep him?
I think we haven't closed the door at all on Freddie. I just think that the way that the conversations had gone with Zach had been a little bit different than they had been with Fred. So
okay.
That was just one of our. That was all of these situations are very different, Tim, and so that was the way that we elected to handle the situation with Zach.
I'm glad you didn't say hot or not with me because I was always on the wrong side of that. Listen, I know that this is a very tough time. There's a lot of things going on. I always appreciate the conversations that you bring and that you're very thoughtful with it. So thanks for doing it and thanks for the time.
Okay. Thank you, Tim.
All right. Be well. There is Leafs general manager Kyle Dubas.